No go, bro. Turns out my boy went back in time and bumped into his dad, and then his parents never met. I guess he faded from existence or something. You know how it goes.
I'm sure most people watching this have heard of Back to the Future and know it's an 80s classic, but as my personal favourite film of all time, I thought I'd give it a review. If you somehow have never heard of Back to the Future, here's a brief synopsis. Marty McFly is a wisecracking teen and is friends with a mad scientist, Doc Brown, who creates a time machine. Marty accidentally gets sent back to good old 1955 and sees his parents when they were his age. He inadvertently makes his own mother fall in love with him instead of his father, thus changing the past so that he might never be born. He has to make his teen mother fall in love with his teen father to avoid never being born. All this while trying to get back to the future.
He said it! He said it!
This film is a quintessential 80s teen film. You've got the cool main character who plays guitar and rides a skateboard, the wacky side character, the head teacher that has it out for the main character, etc. But what I love about this film is it takes those elements and throws them into a sci-fi film. It takes an 80s teen film and it puts it in the 50s. The element of time travel in this film is done in a different way than other time travel films I can think of. The first thing you want to do with a time travelling device would be go 1,000 years in the past or in the future, some drastic amount. But in Back to the Future, Marty only travels 30 years into the past. Just the right amount of time to see his parents when they were his age. In the 50s, Marty's able to learn a lot about his parents, how his mother is a hypocrite.
Terrible. Girls chasing boys. When I was your age, I never chased a boy or called a boy or sat in a parked car with a boy.
How uncool his dad was, and how similar him and his father are, both having fears of rejection.
I guess that would be pretty hard for somebody to understand. No. No, not hard at all.
There are other reasons why travelling 30 years back makes some entertaining situations, but I'll get into that later. At the minute, I want to talk about the first scene with the DeLorean. The first scene with the famous DeLorean time machine sends shivers down my spine every time I watch Back to the Future. I don't really know how to describe the reveal of the DeLorean, other than it just looks so cool. The smoke billowing out of the truck as the time travel device slowly reverses out, all the little electrical noises that can be heard, the score, the cool sci-fi modifications on the DeLorean, and finally Doc Brown bumbling out of the car. All of this adds up to making the audience realise that this isn't just a normal car, this is some serious sci-fi shit. Doc Brown is an utter madman in this scene, but he's only a madman because he believes in his science, which perfectly sums up his character. When he's testing the time travelling device for the first time, he makes Marty stand in front of the car, travelling nearly 90 miles per hour because he says,
"My calculations are correct. When this baby hits 88 miles per hour, you're gonna see some serious shit."
What if they weren't right, Doc? You could have just killed yourself and Marty. But luckily his calculations are correct, and he successfully makes his dog, Einstein, the first ever time traveller. Once Einie is back, Doc explains the tech to Marty and the audience and tells us how he stole the plutonium that is used to power the DeLorean from some Libyan terrorists, and briefly after explaining this, the terrorists find him and Marty at the Twin Pines Mall, shoot and kill Doc, and Marty, in an attempt to outrun the Libyans, accidentally travels back to 1955. Now back to why I think 1955 was a good time to travel back to. Things are similar enough for Marty not to go mental, but also different enough for everything to seem strange to him and for him to seem strange to the people of the 50s. Everything about Marty seems pretty alien to the people of the 50s, and he gets into some wacky scenarios because of this. For instance, the DeLorean looks so futuristic that the farm folk think he's an alien travelling in a UFO because the DeLorean looks like something out of the kid's comic book. So yeah, when I said the concept seemed alien, I meant that literally. But even his clothes seem strange to the people of the 50s. I love the whole thing about it looking like he's wearing a life jacket, mainly because it leads to this classic line.
Hey, Biff gave hold of this guy's life preserver. Dork thinks he's gonna drown. Yeah.
These are just great examples of how far technology can come, and how much things can change in a mere 30 years. Back to the Future has many moments which make the film very rewatchable. Those moments are mainly little details that you catch on to the second time watching the film, or the third or the fourth. Like the Twin Pines Mall becoming the Lone Pine Mall after Marty knocks down one of the pines on Peabody's farm. Or the fact that the farmer is called Peabody, which is a nod to Mr. Peabody from an earlier time-travelling cartoon, Peabody's Improbable History. Or how about Huey Lewis being the judge at the band auditions, telling Marty,
"I'm afraid you're just too darn loud,"
after playing a segment from Huey's own song. And you realise later in the film that when Marty does get to play the dance in the 50s, that the judge that was auditioning Marty was probably one of the kids in the audience that was unimpressed by Marty's guitar solo.
Guess you guys aren't ready for that yet. But you kids are gonna love it.
I've seen this film more times than I can count, and I still notice new things every time I watch it. While Back to the Future is mainly a light-hearted comedy, it does have stakes with genuinely gripping moments. In particular, the scene where Marty is about to travel back to 1985. Marty is trying to start the DeLorean, Doc is trying to plug back in a wire to his lightning contraption, and Marty is also trying to tell Doc about the night he gets shot and to take precautions not to get shot. All this while trying to time the DeLorean hitting 88 miles per hour as the lightning strikes and he hits Doc's contraption, generating the 1.21 gigawatts needed to power the time machine in order to send Marty back to his time. This is a real edge of your seat and emotional moment, which there are a few of towards the end of the film. Marty has 3 catastrophes to avert in the film: his mum and dad not getting together and him not being born, him trying to return to 1985, and he also has to try and prevent Doc Brown's death. He avoids each of these one by one at the end of the film, leading to one massive relief and one massive happy ending, well, at least until part 2 and 3. Some might argue that the ending is too materialistic. Crispin Glover famously disagreed with the ending of the film and didn't return for part 2, as he didn't think the character should receive a monetary reward, as money shouldn't equal happiness, and love should be the reward. Which I agree with to some extent, but I just think the film has a nice, neat, happy ending with everyone getting what they deserved, including Biff. And it ends with Doc setting up part 2 on one of the best lines from any films ever, in my opinion.
Roads? Where we're going, we don't need roads.